Hello and welcome to our session on time management techniques. One of the biggest things people tell me is, I wish I had more time. And oftentimes I say we manage choices, not time. So we have to look at our habits and what we are saying yes to, and are the things that we're saying yes to giving us our biggest return on investment of time. Today, our goal is to look at some techniques, some strategies to help you be more effective in making the choices that you're getting the biggest return on your time invested. Oftentimes people say, well, I want to learn how to work hard, or I want to learn how to work smart. Are you finding ways to work smart? Are you finding ways to be more efficient? Do you do time studies on your processes? And then also, do you do time studies on your own time as a leader? Oftentimes we have to give up to go up, and there's things on our lists that we need to learn how to delegate. And often people will say, oh, I'm nervous to delegate, especially as a supervisor, because what if people don't get it done the way that I want them to get it done? Oftentimes delegation becomes important. So we have to look at the different levels of delegation and when do I choose to delegate and who do I delegate to so that I can get the job done correctly. As you look at also these key things is, with time, we see so many people talking about being busy. How have you been lately? Oh, I've been so busy. And we've glamorized this word busy. We want to look at, are we busy or are we productive? Busy people take a look and they just basically get stuck on the day-to-day. They're prioritizing shallow tasks that aren't giving them the biggest return on their investment of time. Maybe they're giving away attention to anything. They become easily distracted. Oftentimes we say, well, we have so many email and, are those emails actually taking action or doing things or producing results, or are they just busy work? Busy work is not productive work. Anytime people try to multitask, our brains are not wired to multitask. We basically get distracted. If you have notifications on your computer, and every time you get a notification, it takes about 7 seconds to recover back that time. If there's some pressing project that you need to get done, I always encourage you to stop your notifications. At least chunk your time for half an hour blocks to say, hey, I need 30 minutes of uninterrupted time so that I can make progress on this project. Multitasking is not effective. It's just distracted doing. If you continuously do shallow tasks, what are some of those things that you can delegate that opens up more time for you to think big picture as a leader? Because our goal as we start to move up the leadership ladder is to be looking at future and how are we moving that process? What are we looking at continuous improvement? And we have a tendency, if we get too busy, to just start saying yes to everything. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, oh my gosh, I have said yes to all of these things. I have run out of time. We always underestimate the amount of time something might take. So realizing that, if you're saying yes to something, that means you're saying no to something else. So what you're saying no to, is that important? Is that something that's going to give you a bigger return? When you say yes, is that behavior helping or hurting the big picture of the organization? We want to truly get to productivity. And that's where we're looking at what are our key big rocks? What are our big goals for the quarter? What are our big goals for the day? What are we going to do? And we have to be somewhat intentional. Oftentimes good leaders will reflect on the day. And at the end of the day, they'll jot down 3 things that they were proud of that they accomplished for the day. And they'll jot down 3 things that they want to focus on for the next day. So they're very in their leadership. So when they do get caught up in sometimes firefighting and putting out fires in different departments, they also realize that there's 3 big goals that they want to achieve that day. That's going to help move the organization. So prioritizing becomes important. Reserving attention too for important things. What do we consider urgent? Do we drop everything for a customer? Do we drop everything for a hot order? What are we doing to reserve some of our attention? There are some people that actually try to do all of their work and week in a 4-day week. So they basically say, I'm going to try to get everything done as if I'm going on vacation on Friday. Then they spend Fridays catching up with maybe their staff, checking in with their staff. So they make Friday kind of that priority for relationship building. They hyper focus on a single task. Sometimes we want to try to accomplish something and we worry about it more than if we just actually did it. Just start the momentum. Once we get momentum, it makes it easier to complete tasks. It's actually getting the momentum going that we may stew on and waste a lot of time on. So, how many of you have ever had a project where you're like, oh, I really should get to this project. I need to get this project done. And you keep thinking about it and you thinking about it. But if you actually just took a step towards it, and what's something I can do in the next 10 minutes to make this helpful and make this work, you get hyper focused on that single area. Batching shallow tasks, what are those things that maybe don't give us the biggest return, but we still have to do them anyway? And can we chunk time for those? I'm going to set aside 5 minutes at the end of the day, or I'm going to look at what can I do in the next 10 minutes? Having 10-minute lists, those are some shallow tasks. What are the things that I can get done in 10 minutes that I can check off? That's going to buy me more time in the future. And really, truly productive people really look at saying no. And it's not that they want to not be a part of a team. It's just they'll say things like, hey, I've got a lot on my plate right now. Where would you like me to put this on my plate? Is there someone else I can delegate this to? Again, is this something that's a key return on our investment of time? That helps with productivity. As we look at time management, we've got to really look at what are our habits. Our habits dictate our success. So the first habit in any time management is really looking at the purpose. What's the purpose of what I'm spending my time on? I've become much more productive when I'm setting some goals. People often say, well, I don't set goals. Well, I would encourage you on the Sunday night before you go back into work, what are the goals that you have for the week? What's 3 things you want to try to accomplish by the end of the week? And again, looking at, is this helping or hurting get to these goals? What do you actually want? Why do you want it? When you focus on saying yes to the important things and why they're important, you get high performers doing the same thing. Again, get invested in your high performers. Spend time with your superstars. A lot of times my leaders will say, they're already doing well. I don't want to spend, I don't need to spend time with them. You still need to spend time with your superstars, encouraging them, giving them growth opportunities. That helps with defining the purpose, and they can continue to support you in your purpose. There's an author, and she's a lawyer. She talks a lot about habit maintenance. Her name is Mel Robbins, and she really focuses on the psychology of time management. And really, sometimes we waste time thinking too much. If we have an instinct to act, we need to move within 5 seconds, or basically we talk ourselves out of it. A lot of times we talk about, well, when I get motivated, I'm going to do this project, or, when I get excited about, I'm going to do this. Oftentimes we never do. We've got to just start small. What are the things I can do in 5 minutes? What are the things I can do in 10 minutes? And once we start getting momentum, it's amazing how you can start doing things. A lot of people use exercise as an example. People say, oh, I should go to the gym. I should go to the gym. Just 5 minutes. I'll just take 5 minutes. Do you know how long people think about just going to the gym for 5 minutes? If you actually just did it, you got to the gym, you're going to spend more than 5 minutes, because once you get momentum, you're going to keep moving forward. Your brain also wants to try to keep you safe, and your brain wants it easy. So if there's tasks that you are avoiding, they're probably complex tasks. And so you have to break it down into smaller chunks so it looks easy, like achievable tasks. For example, using that whole idea of going to the gym, can I go to the gym 3 times a week for 20 minutes? Great. Some people will say, you know what, I want to spend at least an hour a day doing something I love. Then make time for that. Make that a priority. Don't cancel on yourself. Again, when it becomes a part of your second nature, it just becomes a part of your habit, and you are finding ways to help with that time management, to find at least an hour a day for yourself. There's an activity that people have done, of course, Sunday night setting goals. And what's a goal you have in each of these areas? What's a goal for your health for the week? What's a goal for your family for the week? Some people set Sunday family fun days, and it's like, okay, every Sunday, just expect that for at least 4 hours, we'll be doing something as a family. You might have friend times, friend nights. What's your work? What do you want to try to accomplish this week at work? What's your finances? When you can start looking at all of these areas, you can start managing your time a little bit more efficiently because you're now scheduling goals for each of these areas. If you don't have a goal and you're not setting your intention, you will find yourself wasting time. As you move into your time management habit, the second thing is truly prioritizing. And many organizations create these charts. What's important and what's urgent. These are the things that has to be done right now. So again, oftentimes people will say, well, safety issues, customer issues, those are essential. They're important and urgent, so they must be done now. And then maybe what are some things that are important, but not as urgent? Let's put it on the calendar. Let's schedule it. What are some of those things that maybe aren't as important, but still urgent? Who can I delegate those to? Who might have some time in this area? And what are some of the things that maybe you just need to eliminate? Sometimes people say yes to way too many things and they get themselves burning the candle at both ends. What are some of the things that you just don't need? Anytime you do a value stream and looking at your processes, how many times have you found time wasters? It's like, oh, we really don't need that step. Let's take that step out. And you save yourself a couple minutes here and there, but a couple minutes over a week starts to add up. There's what's called the Pareto principle, making sure that your priorities are giving you the biggest return on your production. If you're spending time, energy, and money on your top 20% of your priorities, you should get 80% of your production back. So really be looking at those things that are giving you the biggest return for your time invested. And people always talk about balancing hours. It's like sometimes it's hard to balance hours, but you want to try to balance happiness and progress in major areas. That's why at the last slide, really looking at each of those areas and dedicating some time each week for that, if not each day. When you look at also this task awareness, you've got to know what your big rocks are. What are your 5 major moves needed to accomplish the task? This again is a chart that organizations will sit down with their leadership team and start discussing and give it out to their staff. This is what's considered urgent. This is maybe not as urgent. Maybe this is a time waster. Maybe we should stop doing this altogether. So realizing, where do we fall? Sometimes people say, well, we have too many meetings. Well, if you're not walking out of meeting without an action plan, then it might be overwhelming. Every meeting should have an action plan. Who's doing what by when? And again, being able to follow up with those types of things. If you want a good strategy for having effective meetings that accomplish, look at strategic doing. Strategic doing is a book as well as a philosophy that helps people hold each other accountable and really looks at, what's the most effective way to use our time to complete these tasks. When you start to get clear on what you really want, then you're setting some SMART goals. And SMART goals basically are, again, specific goals. I want to increase retention by 1%. I want to find at least 20 minutes a day to make follow-up calls. I want to spend at least an hour a week checking in on my team to see how things are working, what I can do to support them. Be specific, be measurable. Be, again, realistic with these goals and timely with these goals. Again, they've got to be achievable. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely are your SMART goals. Mary Kay Ash was somebody who focused a lot on time management and setting good goals for herself. And she'd make a list every night on what she planned to accomplish the next day. And she had, again, items that could be done in 5 minutes or less. She always had, how many prospecting calls can I make in a day? I want to at least make 5 prospecting calls a day. Maybe I want to spend 10 minutes on team development. Again, I want to take 20 minutes to do some type of meeting and really communicating. I would spend 15, 20 minutes just sending out emails. What is it that you have as kind of your plan and your team? And again, like I said, it's self-management. What's your 5-minute list? What's your stop doing list? Chunk some of your larger projects into daily tasks. Focus on what to do, what part of this project is complete. Get some project management software that you can check in so people highlight where they're at on the project. So again, you're saving some time in regards to reporting out. People can go to one centralized location and see currently where the status is, and learning to again say no. And that helps you get into these delegation pieces. So this is according to John Maxwell's philosophy, the delegation of tasks. And basically one of the things that they look at is what's actually required of me. So of the duties that I have on a daily basis, what are the things that, I have to do? What's required of me? The second is what's giving me my greatest return. So these are the things that you enjoy, or these are the things that, of course, are bringing in more relationships with your team. Maybe these are the things that are happening that bring in more of a bottom dollar for you. What is it that's happening that's giving you the greatest return? And then what's most rewarding? We like to do the things that we get the most reward for. Doesn't mean we can just shove everything off and not do the things that we don't get rewarded for, but trying to prioritize the day with things that are required of you and you only, things that give you the biggest return. And then again, what are we consider rewarding? When you do that, then you've got to do the 3 E's. 3 E's basically say, let's look at the month and let's look at those 3 R's. Did they change? Did they stay the same? Are we eliminating anything? What am I doing that could be done by somebody else? I had somebody who was at a high level leadership making key cards. And I asked, why are you making key cards? Well, I need to, know who's all getting these and I'm in charge of everybody in the building. Well, can somebody else make the key cards? I mean, you're an expensive key card maker as, a C-level leader. And finally, we got him talked into delegating that task, but he was quite fearful for quite some time. But delegate, eliminate some things. And then what are the top projects you're doing this month and how long will they take? We underestimate sometimes how long projects take. Well, it shouldn't take me that long. Well, then maybe we run up against some barriers, or maybe there's some issues that are happening with receiving materials, whatever it so be. What is our good estimate of time? When you're talking to customers, again, don't have too short of a timeline. We can always say, hey, I'll get it to you by Friday and then send it to them on Tuesday. And they're going to be elated and think you're the best ever. Again, be careful with what you're promising in time to your customers as well. But do a time efficiency study on yourself. Where is your biggest time wasters? Email is one of the biggest time wasters. And people are like, that's the only way we do business now. People are spending 11 hours per week on average in email. Some people will find time and they will chunk it and say, hey, between the hours of 10 and 11, I'm going to check on email, or between the hours of 1 and 3, I'm going to check on email. Don't be that person who gets up right away out of bed and starts working on email. Set your intention for the day. What's something you want to try to achieve? What we found is that people are most productive the first 3 hours that they're awake. So if you're going to host meetings later on in the afternoon. Again, get people up, getting them productive, getting them creative. Another big time waster is internet searches. It's amazing how people will go down a dark hole very quickly. So set a timer if you can, 20 minutes to research something, and then really looking at your own productive time. Some of us are morning people, some of us are afternoon people, and some of us are night people. When is your best time for you? When's your most creative time? When's your most efficient time? Also, there's more and more techno stress because we are so connected to everything. We can get emails on our phone. We can get emails on our computers. We have access to media. I mean, it's just amazing. We can get overwhelmed with techno stress. So being able to maybe do a digital detox. I have one friend who does cell-free Saturdays. Like, she's like, I'm not going to have my cell phone on Saturday with me. I'm totally taking that and leaving it home. So if you want to do something with me or plan something, we got to set that up prior to Friday. So she knows on Saturday, But again, just being able to get away from that because we're drowning in so much data. And again, trying to follow one course until complete is the idea of focus, and that becomes important. You look at focus, it's really, again, what are your 3 big rocks? What are your 3 big goals for the quarter, for the week, for the day, for the year? What are those 5 major moves that we need to do to get us towards that goal? When you're asking and saying yes to things, ask yourself, is this going to get me to where I want to be a year from now? Is this helping or hurting my goals? And if you've got some confronting excuses, that becomes important. A lot of times we never have enough money, we never have enough time. Those are your 2 biggest excuses you will get from people. But realizing that, again, what are those excuses and how are we going to overcome those? When you're asking for commitment, that becomes a big piece as well, because many times people will say yes to things, but they're not committed to doing it, and you kind of like procrastinate. So, how committed are you to make this happen? What's it going to take to make this happen? When can I expect this by? Those are all good questions to ask in regards to getting commitment from people. And then really reevaluate, maybe I didn't spend enough time here. Maybe I can shift it here. Always looking at continuous improvement, 1% better, not major. What can I do 1% better today? Hey, I made 5 calls today. Maybe I can make 6 tomorrow. Just looking at what can I do to better myself. When you focus on these things, again, you can look at some strategies. And these are some focus strategies that individuals have used in developing some good time management habits. The Pomodoro technique, this is kind of a big one that people will say, hey, I set a timer for 25 minutes. And it's amazing how I thought I'd be able to get more done in 25 minutes. They will shut everything off, shut their notifications off. They'll say, hey, I need 25 minutes uninterrupted. Here's what I'm going to do. And then they do a quick, evaluation. Did I get interrupted? Did I take too long? Did I get accomplished what I wanted to get accomplished? Again, realizing that it's just having some type of strategy or technique that gets you going. There's also the fly high, focus, flow, finish, and follow up, the 5F philosophy. And again, trying to do a task at a time. When we get into flow, how many of you have ever oh my God, that time went so fast. I didn't even realize it because I was just, pounding out some stuff, getting care of. We want to get into flow. Flow helps us move forward through things. And many of you are, again, familiar with the 5S lean workplace, because this is a time efficiency piece. If you're looking at this desk right now and you're going, oh my God, how do you find anything? People spend a lot of time looking for stuff. So if you can 5S your work area, workspace, your whole warehouse, people know exactly where things are at. They know where to go, and it's pretty standardized. So really starting to 5S your life gets you decluttered in your brain. If we have too much clutter in our brain, then it becomes overwhelming and we don't accomplish anything. You've got 10,000 emails in an inbox. Maybe you need to start charting your inbox. What are those things that are important and unread and starred, and what is everything else? And, making files for each project. And here's the emails that go to this project, because again, we spend a lot of time on emails. And the rule with email is if it's going to take more than 3 emails, pick up the phone, make a call, and then type in an email afterwards as per our conversation and talk about those key elements. When you declutter, it gives you more time and it gets you prepared for productivity and avoiding burnout. The 2-minute rule of email as well. For every incoming email, ask yourself, can you deal with this and within 2 minutes? If you can, great, get it done. If you can't, then just put it to a task manager. Maybe, a file it for later, but try to hammer out those 2-minute types of emails. So many times we open it and we're like, oh, maybe I'll address that later, mark it unread. And then we open it again and, oh yeah, I still don't know what to say. And then mark it unread. That is a huge time waster. The other big thing too is we procrastinate if we feel overwhelmed and we don't feel as though we can accomplish it. So chunk your time again, set aside time each day to maybe read something. If you're burnt out, you got to find 10 minutes a day, just do something to energize you. I don't care if it's getting outside, go for a walk, or just finding 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes where you can focus on yourself and things that you like to do. Again, know that critical element of your job. Focus on it daily. Measure the things that matter. Do the first thing that you need to do each day. Make it a habit. The more we can make it a habit, the more we create opportunities for success. Like I said earlier, compress your work week. Pretend Friday doesn't exist. Start each week thinking you only have Monday through Thursday to get everything done, and that's going to improve your productivity. Friday, then you can play catch up. Maybe use it as a strategic work day. Maybe you schedule a day for meetings, or take it easy without feeling guilty. A lot of times we don't look at what we got done. We focus too much on what we didn't get done, and that causes more burnout. So really look at, what did I accomplish? And if you need to, having that free extra day, you can start rearranging things if necessary, because nowadays it seems like we all have to be more flexible than we've ever had to be. And so it's a matter of, having that extra buy-in day where you have that as a floater. The other big thing is, creating some boundaries. We've got to be able to say, no, without feeling guilty or feeling like we're minimizing the team. I would always encourage you to look at what are some boundaries, not barriers. Barriers are just whining and complaining, but boundaries are like, hey, here's what I need. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm getting it done. If you're giving me more, where do you want me to fit this in? Because I'm pretty tight right now. So again, realizing choosing those boundaries becomes key. But then also, setting up time where you're doing your best work. Do you do your best work in the morning? Do you do it in the afternoon? Do you do it at night? Setting yourself for success in your most productive time. Put yourself in your teammate's shoes. Oftentimes we just judge ourselves and we think, well, everybody should have the same speed as I do. Realize that some people take more time than others. And if you're too focused on, speed, you might lose some efficiency. So understanding, of course, that everybody has that different skill set, and we have to be aware of that. And we've got to make agreements in terms of the team's greater good. If then is our agreements. If we do this, then we can expect this to have happen. This is when you're getting that buy-in on creating these habits of continuous improvement. And really, again, it's easy to set up and stick to boundaries when you frame them in terms of the big picture. Is this helping us or hurting us? Is this taking us one step closer to our goal, or is this making us go backwards? Sometimes we have 8 million things going on, and it's like, okay, which one do you want me to focus on today? Because we have 8 million things going on. And somebody will say, well, I really want you to focus on this today because we want to be able to get this out to the customer or our internal customer. But again, setting up times for those goals, setting those boundaries when it's a big picture. And the other big thing is sometimes we just get too caught up in speed and we make errors, and errors take more time because now we've got to redo something that we should have just taken that extra 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning. Same with your staff, your new people. Take some time with your new people to get them acclimated, help answer their questions, get them into the culture of the organization. Slow down. You're not going to get them up to 30 years within 3 months, but everybody's like, well, I need them to know same thing as somebody who's been here for 30 years. It's going to take time for that. Again, as we talked about in change is only hard for people who aren't ready. We've got to, again, help people see the importance of the change. Slow down. Look at your time wasters. We stress over time wasters. And one of the biggest things is stressing. The things that we tell ourselves, the thought processes that we go through. Many times people complain about it and whine about it. If you just would have done it and not spent all that time complaining or whining, it'd have been done by now. So getting some of that momentum. Maybe, again, a time waster is people resisting things because they're scared. They have a fear of failure. What if I make a mistake? I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to do this wrong. That's a time waster, getting caught in that drama. Just do it, as they say. The other big thing is perfectionism. We often say, well, I want people to do things the way I want them to do that. Well, then, again, being able to coach them on that and why it's important to do it the way you have it established or the process has it established, and opening that communication, but realizing progress is better than perfection. Done is better than perfect, sometimes what people say. And then if you've got people who want to just consume your time with conversations and they say, hey, you got a minute? And then it takes like 3 hours. Make sure that you set the expectation up front. Hey, you got a minute? I don't right now, but I can meet with you at 3 o'clock because I've got to get this, and this done. Can you meet at 3? Will 3 o'clock work? Again, that's setting up boundaries, saying you're still available. You're still saying yes, but again, you're trying to be more intentional. If you get interrupted all the time, it takes about 7 minutes of every interruption to get back to what you were doing. One person said, well, I had to create some boundaries finally because everybody was coming to me and just complaining. Finally, I said, you know what? I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I need to get done today. If it's not broken and somebody's not hurt, then just work through it, get done what you needed to get done, and create one-on-one check-ins with your team. Find 5 minutes a week just to check in. And if somebody wants to interrupt you, and if it's not a pressing emergency, say something like, hey, bring that to our 5-minute meeting, or, bring this up when we talk next. Or again, realizing that we want to be more efficient and effective with that time. We also can do what we call an S-bar. If you've got somebody who comes in and says, oh, you got a minute? I can say, yeah, if you have an S-bar, because a lot of times people come in with problems. And so with the problems, this S-bar basically says, tell me the situation, what's the background, what was the assessment that you made, and what's your recommendation? And that starts to, again, give them some opportunities to problem solve, but then it also gives you a chance to help them see how they can build their own influence and their own leadership. So realizing the S-bar is something that's used a lot in healthcare, but it also is transitioning over into manufacturing, because we can't get caught up in all the, so what, this happened, this is big, what's this a big deal? What do we need to do different? That gets you into solution focused thinking. If you're focusing too much on the future, this is starting to cause maybe some anxiety. So at least something every day that helps you reach a longer term goal and keep yourself in the present. If you're focused too much on the head, you again increase anxiety in yourself, maybe increase anxiety within the culture. Trying to have a good plan for the future, but not being so consumed by it, having some of that flexibility. So try to live in the moment. What am I doing right now? And how can I work through this? And one of the biggest things that I see is essential is being able to give yourself some grace. Get clear on what success means for you and for your team. What's a day look like if you are successful? What are the behaviors that people are doing specifically? What strategies could I learn or my team learn to be much more effective? Do you have an hour of power? A digital detox. Again, just realizing that we have to have an hour to ourselves if we can. Never cancel on yourself. Don't be that big of a people pleaser that you can't cancel on yourself. You got to be able to take care of yourself. And ask for help, because oftentimes people don't want to delegate. And delegation can be somewhat easy, if you've got the right people to delegate to. Ask yourself, what is the task that I can delegate? Who is the person that I think could help me with this? Do they need training to get it done? If so, how long is that going to take? And then help them. Here's what I'm asking. This is what I'm looking for. What can you do? If you find yourself asking, how can I support you? You're going to have much more psychological safety. And realizing that, too, you're not alone. That many of us are feeling overwhelmed. And so it's like, hey, what could you do different? If you want a great resource, Brandon Bouchard has High Performance Habits books that he has written. And again, really focuses on the importance of setting intentions and action items. You've got to have action items. Who's doing what by when? And then how do you want me to hold you accountable? How will we hold each other accountable? That's going to instill stronger habits. And really stop all or nothing thinking. If I can't, I only have 10 minutes. Well, you can get a lot done in 10 minutes. If I don't have at least 3 hours and I don't want to do that. I see this a lot when people will block off a day and try to do performance evaluations all day. it doesn't work. Try to find 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day where you're working on maybe one a day, staying kind of in that momentum and that thought process, and do a time study on yourself. This is a chart that you can use. There's plenty of other charts available. If you just Google and really, what was the time? What were you actually doing? Was it a priority? Was it an A priority? Or maybe was it a not urgent priority? What were the results and how much energy did you put into it? Sometimes we put way too much energy into things that don't matter. And so again, I always encourage you as leaders to evaluate that time process. There's also, again, a part of this training material, a time efficiency study packet that the University of Kentucky uses. I would encourage you to do that with yourself. It gives you some goals, it gives you some items, and it asks you to kind of log where you're at. Because oftentimes people are like, I didn't realize how much time I wasted. On your phones, did you realize you can there's an app area that you can find out how many hours screen time the phone has had, how many hours you've been on. Some people are like, oh my God, I was on my phone for 4 hours. I didn't even think about it. We get very distracted. So really look at, doing those time efficiency studies, what's important, because it's not about time management, it's about choice management, and it's about creating habits of productivity. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully you're able to utilize some strategies to be much more efficient and effective in your own time management. So thanks for sharing and have a great day.